Selling yourself without selling yourself. If you want to learn how to do that, watch this whole podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Jacob Godar, and my channel is about building your future through business, investing, and purpose. Today we're talking about selling yourself without selling yourself with Dr. Matthew Pennell. Doctor, introduce yourself, sir.
What's up, buddy? Good to see you again this week. We've enjoyed this little series. So my name is Matt Pennell. I'm chiropractor at Element Health and Wellness here in Dallas, Texas. And, as we mentioned in the first couple of this is your first time tuning in, Jacob and I grew up together back in Jacksonville, Illinois. And, we kind of approached each other. Jacob had reached out about doing a little joint video series. And so I thought it was awesome. It's been a lot of fun. And so today we're bouncing ideas. We said, selling yourself without selling yourself in between social media and, just being in business. It's hard not to always be on the selling side. So, Jacob, what does that title kind of bring up to you? What do you think of when you read that title?
When I think of that title, when I think of selling yourself without actually selling yourself, I think we're kind of splitting away from that heavy salesman type of thing and focusing more on, building your brand. So, marketing that is more consistent with education, branding about, in my situation, my lawn and landscape company, just really creating this picture of what it is and the picture of how we want it to look to people, instead of, hey, in my industry, it's one of the most aggravating things that you see because it doesn't really work, is a picture on Facebook that you can tell is sponsored, that someone spent $5 for, of a picture of a green lawn with striped grass. Zero purpose, zero anything, and then saying mows starting at $25.
There's no story.
Yeah. There's no story. There's no branding. There's no nothing. And kind of you follow Gary Vee, so kind of like the jab, hook deal, not just hook right off the bat and try to sell something. So really, that's what I feel like. I feel like it's building education, building a story around a business. And, and a lot of times that story, that education, that background sells for you without you having to necessarily go out there and sell yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And building your brand is such a big piece. Prior to the video actually rolling, Jacob and I were just bouncing some ideas back and forth across, to each other. And one of the things that we said was that, he comes from a little bit different spot than I do. When Jacob is selling on behalf of Scooter's Lawn Care, he's selling on that brand. It doesn't always have to be him necessarily mowing the lawns or putting up whatever, but he's the one that created the processes, the level that they have to hold themselves to in order to do things correctly. Like on my end, I'm more selling myself. It's me physically working on people. It's Element as a whole, but I'm selling on Dr. Pennell, being the one to give that hands-on. So I think there's a little difference in that, which will be kind of fun to hear back and forth from us. But, as I was thinking about selling yourself without selling yourself, there are a couple things that, to me came to mind. So letting the work speak for itself. You've talked about building your brand, and to me, that's kind of the same thing. You don't always have to straight ask for a sale, but if you're good at what you do, people will want to, be attracted to that. So not being B was essentially not being a salesman every time you open your mouth. And it can be tough. Like when we have a passion for something and we want to help others, you kind of naturally become a salesman. So it makes it a little bit difficult. But then C, I thought this one was interesting. When it comes to selling yourself without selling yourself, let relationships be relationships. Not every relationship that you come across has to be, you're trying to get something out of that. And so you don't always have to be selling yourself with every single person that you talk to. Sometimes you're just going to have friendships that have nothing to do with business, and that's okay. I think for people like you and I, Jacob, we constantly come across like we're connected by business in some way. Yeah. So it's like, that's just a natural thing. But what's been your experience in regards to relationships and how that forms?
Um, I mean, it's really, really cool, you know, networking and even more in what you're in and kind of things that I'm interested in are so, so huge. We've just had we've just hammered marketing and we kind of skipped over networking a lot. I started business with it, you know, a lot of business people have been involved in like a BNI or something like that, some kind of business networking group. And it shows, I mean, the networking is so strong, you know, whether it even be just having people to go to, you know, to
Like
get your
mentor
business
type
going.
people.
People, mentor type people, got my first life insurance policy from somebody in a BNI group, just from
Yeah.
making these connections
Yeah.
and purchasing with other people to
Yeah.
like you said, it might not be like a connection. Hey, I want to meet you and sell you today. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to invest with this person, and then I'm going to let them go ahead and talk about me because I went ahead and did that. You know, same with donating to things, you know, or whatever the case is. Just continuously building those little relationships it pays tenfold. You're right.
And you brought up a couple of really good things. I think number one, before we get too far into it, the BNI is really interesting. If you don't know much about business at all, like Jacob and I, we didn't go, you know, we weren't a part of BNI like together directly, but we were a part of two separate groups. And so BNI is a business networking group. You essentially grow these groups from scratch, or you join one. And the idea is that each seat within the group, each member holds a different classification. So there's only one chiropractor, there's only one massage therapist. And the whole idea is that you're building your brand and you're networking enough that these relationships build. So now you can, purchase from each other and talk about each other in a third party way that actually builds credibility without just having to talk to yourself. You're supposed to be creating this network that's out there to sell for you. And I tell you what, if you don't know anything about business, it's a really good place to start. I learned a lot of, what to talk about in a meeting one-to-one. I don't know what seats you held, but, I had gone through some of the different ranks, vice president, president. And I mean, I had never been in a corporate situation before, but I tell you what, if you ever plan to have a group of people, it helps you to understand that protection level of the VP kind of projects what the president does and goes out and does the front level grinding. And I don't know, there's just a lot of benefit to that. What did you see, or some of your takeaways from BNI?
I saw it and I love it. And I would really like it in a structure with a guy like you and a guy like me and a lot of young entrepreneurs. Our group, that was what ended our group, is it was a lot of age people that it turned more into, and a lot of people their jobs had them there. That turned more into like hey, we sit down. That we sit down and have a conversation, and that's not what I'm there for. I'm there for one reason, and that is to actually network, and that is to actually follow the process and protocol. I believe I was a vice president for like a short stint before we kind of fizzled out. That speaking in front of people is huge. Like I like speaking in front of people. That's everybody should start a YouTube channel. Everybody should talk, because it feels weird and know that you're talking out in front of a bunch of people. People should take opportunities to get in front of people and talk. I've heard of things like Toastmasters and stuff like that. I mean, you should, if you're going to be a leader, you should be trying to, and I'm giving this advice and I don't do it enough. Like, you should try to take every advantage to speak in front of people. So BNI, if it does nothing else, gets you out of that comfort zone if you're starting a business.
I think, geez. You hit on a lot of really good points, especially so in BNI, every single meeting, and you meet once a week, you have to stand up, you have to talk, you have to introduce yourself, and you give, like, depending on your group and size, it may be 30 seconds, it may be 45, a minute, whatever you guys decide, but let's just say it's a minute. You give a minute rundown on who you are, what you do, and who you're looking to be connected with. Well, that's kind of your elevator pitch, right? So, but you have to, one of the key things in that situation is you also have to, so when I would stand up, I would say, I'm Dr. Pennell. At the time, I was chiropractor, performance chiropractic, team chiropractors, blah, blah, blah. And, I focus on this in my office, and I want to be introduced to a physical therapist that focuses on the shoulder. I want to do this, right? Because And people go, why are you so specific? And I found that if I just said, oh, I'm a chiropractor, I treat everybody with a spine, that gets a good, chuckle here and there. But what it doesn't do is get people's minds focused on what you want and who you want to be connected to. So the more focused that your mind frame is, and you know what you want, other people feed off of that too. I want to treat people with headaches this week. Well, shit, my mom can't even sleep because she's got such bad headaches and, can't work. That's where a lot of that connection came in. Yeah. And so those tips made a big difference too. You may not be hitting the masses, which is okay. You're hitting the fine-tuned ones. They're actually going to bring you business. That stuff is what really seemed to change. So that was a way, BNI really was a way to sell yourself in turn without fully selling yourself by then projecting it with other people. It was cool.
Yes.
But
let me ask you real quick and jump in. What things do you do for branding? Just a short rundown of things that you focus on for branding.
For branding specifically, I mean, are you talking like for social media or for just
it could be social media, it could be networking that's causing branding. Like, what are some of the little things that you focus on?
Yeah, so I mean, I do a lot of person-to-person interaction. Like, I try to interact at gyms. Gyms are great facilities for chiropractors because they're a lot like us. They get it. It's a small business. They're dealing with people that are hurt. I can help people that are hurt. That's a good way for me. And then if they need personal training, I can swing them back over to those people. Awesome. I do things like send letters to orthopedic surgeons and attorneys and then I call them and I say, hey, now I've gotten this really good, speech down where it's, hey, I'm Dr. Pennell, how are you? Great. I know exactly who I need to talk to. And then, how do we kind of evolve that relationship? So things like that, lunches, there's nothing better than sitting down with somebody one-to-one. And honestly, use what you like. And then it makes it fun. Like, I enjoy golfing. You can learn a lot about somebody in 3 hours of golf. You can learn if they like to cut corners, if they're kind of a cheater, if they're, a temper tantrum person, like if they're just a good old fashioned bullshitter. It's really interesting. So finding something that kind of takes the business element away and puts people into real life form, that's when you really find out who you're dealing with.
I love that. I love talking with you and seeing how much personal branding networking that you do, because we get such a blast of like, this was a slow week and we had 24 new people request service, in a busy week is like, we almost broke our record. We almost had 70 a couple weeks ago of new people requesting some form of service. Yeah. And setting appointments for typically to meet with me or maybe Melanie, or Zoe's going to do some kind of maintenance estimate for them. So ours just kind of got separated where, I am very distant from it. And they're that networking to create that, it's something that we've kind of been lost on because it's not been something that we've needed. We wanted to curate, if I'm networking, it's more connections with vendors and other people that we can strategically use to help them and help us. But so it's so awesome to see you doing it like direct to really good lead sources for you.
Well, have you, and this is just, I don't know to what degree you've taken this, but have you tried much of, like, where my mind goes, if I were in your situation, and obviously you don't need my advice because you guys are rocking and rolling, but have you ever thought of like taking, do you take that person with you, like, so that you physically make that interaction with somebody and go, this is my, company, this is blah, 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 blah. This person's going to help like liaison this situation for you and be that point of contact here on out. But you got my word that it's all behind, my oversight, that type of stuff.
In what situation? Like in an appointment,
when you go to different meetings, like, are you always the point man, or do you send other people to be the point man? Like, how does that work for you?
I kind of, just because of to help other people sales, I'm like really focused on a salesperson. I've started to go out and meet like just almost everybody, and then through technology and other things, hand off all the actual work. So I'm more of the face guy.
Got it.
But all in all, people really don't even know if I'm the owner or not anymore. They just know that I'm a person coming and selling from Scooter's Lawn Care. So we progress. I mean, with the appointments we set, it would be one thing if we were going out and really hammering on like HOAs or big contracts where I would need to sit down and in front of maybe a board and sell stuff, which we've done, and I've been involved in. But it's a lot of direct to homeowner stuff. We're really, really residential. So, but that's my biggest thing. That's what I love. I love creating a relationship. So I guess you can call it networking with each one of those appointments. You know, I have 3 to 5 appointments a day, where I go out and I talk about a customer's needs, you know, and that's one of the best things is like that. I like relating to a person and then using that to sell to them, you know, finding out their problems. Like it's you get into the conversation of sales, it's so much more, and I'm a talker, so it's hard, but it's so much more about them than it is you. So it's so much more about listening than blabbing your gums about what you think you know.
True. Yeah.
So, I mean, sorry, I got a little sidetracked.
No. Yeah. I mean, fantastic point. And this is more for like the listeners than it is, you know, for necessarily talking to you. Just, I think it's important for like some of that interaction. But one thing that I've found is that, you know, so in our line of business, I do a lot with like orthopedic surgeons, primary care physicians, attorneys, you know, all these groups, right? Mm-hmm. So for a while I was, you know, busy running all this stuff, and I wanted my receptionist, Brittany, to reach out and to try to create these relationships from scratch. And she was doing a good job. She was getting a hold of these people, whatever. And as a quarantine hit, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make these interactions start with me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make the calls. I'm going to set the emails. I'm going to make sure, hey, you got my personal email. You got my cell phone. You let me know what you need. But if it's, you know, but Brittany's here to help facilitate in that way. If I'm in with patients, whatever, she can help you out and make sure things are squared away. But I'm right there with it the entire time. And it's amazing how much ROI I've gotten right off the bat, because people are like, this is fantastic. Like
you're doing the same version of what I'm saying on a little different spiel. And I can't tell you, you know, relating. I'm over what's going on right now. So I'm on it. I'm past it and done with it. Like I've even made a video that's going to come out Sunday. We're done talking about it. We're going for all positive, but just the situation itself. Once all the same thing you said, like I kind of grabbed it by the neck once this all started. And I said, I'm meeting every customer. I'm meeting every single person. If it's about a design, if it's about a sale, I want to know, because when I meet someone, I know if they're going to buy. Like, I don't like, and that's lost upon our team so far, which is not bad. It's just they're not there yet. But when I talk to someone, I know if they're going to buy. I know how to ask you, like, if you don't know your budget, well, I'll explain to you what your budget looks like by asking, well, we can, you know, is this up to 5,000? Is this 5 to 10? You know, we can get crazy because we can spend $100,000 in a backyard. So where would you like to be on your project? But I grabbed it by the neck and I started doing all of them, a little bit out of fear, but a little bit out of wanting to just, you know, really try to control this situation. That's when I kind of said, I told you the other day, you know, like the 5 to 5 schedule that I've been running, trying to do that, and then handing everything off so people can do a CSR or the back end work of it to facilitate it, make sure you maintain it.
I agree. So, and I think one way that newer business owners, chiropractors, and you know what, I also really want to emphasize this. You do not have to be the business owner in order to do these things. You can be an employee, you can be a salaried employee, you can be an hourly employee. You know, implementing the things that we're talking about are just good business tactics. And you know what, if you're not in the position to necessarily be the one directly selling, learn from the person who is, so that when you have your opportunity or you break off and do your own thing or whatever it is, you can contribute and figure that stuff out. Like, you know, don't feel bad about yourself because you don't physically own a company. Like, to me, use that opportunity to learn as much as you can. And I mean, you're in the best position possible because that means you're learning without any risk, essentially. You know, so when it's your money up front, man, you know, there's a lot more going on. So, you know, when you don't have the stress of physically having to provide based on what you actually sell and bring in, like that's what allows you to learn And some people like to learn with their back against the wall. Others like to learn in a comfortable environment. Yeah, right? Like, look at you, you grinded it out. You know, for me, I've done both. Personally, I like to know that at least I'm okay. At the moment, that like gives me, when it comes to the family, you know, frame, it's like I like to know that we're okay from a short-term financial standpoint that allows me to go grow, because the way that I grow is not so in your face salesy, like I want to grab this. And that's just me. Like, I think the reason you're so successful doing that is because you're comfortable doing it. That's part of you. Like, you want to be out and you want to bring in that business. It's just a different approach. And I think knowing where your strengths lie, that's what makes all the difference.
Yeah. And there's no wrong or right in business. You know, I happen to be more of an extrovert, and that's just how I am, you know, and I've always been that way, you know. But there's tons of people who are introverts who don't want to do any of this stuff that are super successful, the far end of the spectrum of not wanting to do any of this, that still go out there and kill it. And you spoke to a really cool part of like what we're talking about, the ideas, doing these things. You don't feel bad if you don't own business. You can do all of this, and it helps you become, instead of just wanting a raise and thinking you deserve that for time spent, it helps you focus on the most important thing. That is becoming an asset. So an asset to a business, depending on what it produces, is worth more. And I can't say enough about that thought process, you know.
I 100% agree. I want to just rewind real quick on something that you touched in regards to BNI, because I think using relationships effectively makes a lot of sense. If you need insurance, why not buy from the person that is already, you know, utilizing your services, or that maybe could utilize your services, you know, as long as you like and trust that person. You don't have to buy from somebody just to do it in hopes that it turns into something. If you think they're a schmuck, they probably are, you know, at least to some degree. Like, you know, and if I think somebody's kind of a schmuck, I really don't want them handling my money or handling my insurance. So maybe I learn something from them and find somebody else. I don't know. But at the same time, if you like the person, give them a shot. If it doesn't work, you part ways. You also have to be able to just stand up and say it, man. Most people are scared to, you know, voice their opinion or truth. They're like, oh, I gave somebody my money. You know, they've had my insurance now for a year. I don't know if I can pull away. The hell you can't. I mean, if it doesn't work and you don't like it, like, look, I respect what you've done and I appreciate it, but it's not working for me right now, and I'm going to go a different direction. This is why.
Yep, 100%. Until you've got like such a solid relationship, you know, if you're feeling a little questionable and you want to move to something else, like my insurance guy, he's got my back, and like he knows if I'm calling, what I expect. I expect answers, and even if it's Sunday, you know, like So until you've got something like that, you should never feel held down by any connection you've made, because this is business. Like, you got to do what you got to do. So
no doubt. So I think, you know, using the people, like not using, but I'm saying utilizing, I guess is a better word. You know, the people that are around you, because hey, like if I want a gym to send me, like for instance, a good friend of mine is a personal trainer at Equinox. They send me clients. Well, it's probably a good idea then for me to be a member at Equinox to show that I'm supporting their business also, and to show face. There's a lot of reasons behind it. And I just like the gym. You know, it's a higher end one, it's expensive. Maybe I wouldn't pay that type of money if it wasn't for the relationships coming in, but you know, that's something that I got to do from a business standpoint, right? That's utilizing that relationship in a proper form so everybody wins, in my opinion.
100%.
So why do you think it's important not to sell in every social media post, or, you know, every time you talk? What does it do negatively?
You know, things specifically like social media or Facebook, you know, those things, they're so much better for telling a story than they are for actually, I mean, they do the sales too, they do it all, but for like Facebook, for an example, I just love how it tells a story, and I really don't love how it sells, you know. And we spend a ton of money on Facebook to tell a story, not so much direct sell. We need people to feel good. So when we get there, they already love our company. And that's what Facebook gives us. It doesn't necessarily drive us millions of leads. When we go there, I can't tell you how many people are like, oh my God, I follow everything you guys do on Facebook. You guys are just, I mean, I just love your team. I've met people that didn't buy and did buy that were fanatics about our business just from the story. So forums like that, I just don't love the sell method to it.
Yeah.
Now in person, you know, and in different situations, like AdWords, it's not a story builder. It is a selling tool. So it really depends on what it is. And I think you really need to know the difference, and make sure you're using stuff correctly and using the situations correctly. That was kind of like a broad answer to that question.
I agree. And, you know, you can also sell without selling by just simply being present. You know, like people that say, oh, you seem to be well connected. Well, what does that mean exactly? That means they see me everywhere. That means that in conversations, my name comes up or your name comes up or whatever, right? The business comes up, whatever it is. That's what being well connected actually means. It's like you're mingling with other minglers that put you in a good light. Why do you think that Jacob and I do videos? Why do you think I have had a podcast for a couple of years? Why do you think we are all over every social media platform pretty much possible? And that's because wherever you look, we want you to think of our brand in some way. And obviously we're not perfect at it. We're continuing to improve over time. And maybe we're far from good. I don't know, but it's, I'm going to keep trying, and we're improving. We'll put it that way.
100%. And you spoke to something I said earlier, and I'm going to rewind back to that just for a second, that you should start a YouTube channel. You should start something to be able to speak in front of people, because it's scary and it's awkward, and you need to get past awkward. That'll help you do it in person. Then you start doing it more in person, and you'll just get better and better. And then it'll become more natural and natural. It's kind of like making a phone call and leaving a voicemail when you first start a business is awkward. Now, when I make voicemails, I don't even I'll say a big long spiel, and honestly, it's an autopilot thing. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just going along with my process. And when you rewind that back into what we're talking about, being seen by everyone and making these connections. Now, so if you start a YouTube channel, I can't tell you the amount of connections in our industry. I've been in multiple magazines. I've been in Lawn and Landscape. I've been in Turf. I've been in everything with interviews. And it's not because I'm some big rock star. It's because I was out there talking about things people wanted to hear about, and they saw it and they wanted to ask about a story. I've been in a magazine for a Ditch Witch, which is a Ditch Witch piece of machinery. They saw some of my stuff reviewing one of their machines on YouTube, and they asked, could we do a piece and could we put it in one of our articles? And cool. We'll send you a bunch of Ditch Witch swag. So that's not even so much for the business. That's just continued connection. We're getting off even more of sales. Just your network is your net worth. So the network you create really allows the leverage and the flexibility you have. So when I moved to Springfield, at first I didn't really have this, but when I started working for the last body shop I worked at, in 2 to 4 years, I knew more people in the auto body industry and car industry, and I was more connected, and I could get things I needed or do things I needed than I ever learned and had connections in my hometown in 20 years. And that's the same thing that, you are getting. You're getting connected with more people from your podcast and YouTube channel from all over the world. And these connections, people ask you, why do you do these things? They continue. You can't really see the ROI on it, but they continue to bring good into your life.
Yeah. And to be honest, for me, I look at it a couple different ways. I mean, I think one, there's always let's just take YouTube, for instance, right? There's a possibility that somebody in Dallas could find me on YouTube and use me there. But on the other side, there's one simple fact of it is I'm just trying to improve. I'm trying to get better at speaking. I'm trying to get better at doing videos. Now, I don't even think twice about whipping the camera out and doing a video, where 5 years ago when I started business, I was so scared to do a video that I'd only do pictures as posts because I didn't like how I sounded. I didn't like my mannerisms. I didn't like how it came across. And I wasn't confident that I was talking about the right thing, to be honest. At least in a post, I can edit and re-edit that just so that it sounds exactly like I know what I'm talking about. And you know what? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But, you know, the video just, you know, it's the tone of voice. It's your facial expressions. It's the whole deal. It's how you, you know, present yourself. And that's something that you've always been so good at with your videos is, you know, you get real close when you want to talk. You know, you back up. You're using hands. Your voice goes up and down. It's everything that keeps people's attention. And one thing that I do want to throw out there, this is a completely off topic thing, but one thing that you have to remember when you're recording video, and this is something that I just learned from another podcast recently, you have to think that your mic and video and whatever is probably going to cut you almost 50% of what your true emotion is. So if you think about that when you're recording, that means that you got to elevate enough that you sound freaking good and entertaining even to the outside. And I think way too many of my conversations in the past have been kind of an even kill, you know, just, and it sounds good in person, but when you're listening in the car, then you're like, I'm going to hit, you know, the snooze button. I'm going to fall, you know, into the curb. So little things like that you just learn. I wouldn't have learned that if I wasn't doing it, but also listening. No. And then the third thing is that, you know, you do all this stuff because you never know what comes down the road. If somebody reaches out with an opportunity, great. Maybe I met them out of nowhere. Maybe it's just that I'm actually building a new brand of something completely different. And I've got a couple ideas that we're not going to talk on here. Jake and I can talk offline, but there are a lot of things that like you just, you know, you start thinking about that all of a sudden, wow, maybe I could actually, you know, mean something to this certain group. And what's your spin on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. You know, this is a spin-off of a separate brand. You know, at first mine was, my YouTube channel is really about Scooter's lawn care of our business, and now I'm trying to take it to more of what I'm passionate about. You know, I'm really passionate about building a life and building your future and you know, the different things, investing. But yeah, I feel like it can build a whole different brand that could just connect you and cause, like I said, just so many opportunities that you would have never expected, because I've already seen it happen. You know, we've already had a bunch of opportunities come down the line. And I think you just shift and evolve like, you know, you're doing with your podcast, the things you're doing, the things we're changing, the new things we're trying, your YouTube stuff getting different and better all the time. Yeah, I think it's like the precursor to a whole new brand potential.
Well, you're telling your story. You know, Gary Vee talks about this so much, I feel like, is that, you know, there are people that are just out there to goof around, and, you know, that creates a brand for themselves. And you know what? Great. Like, or they're just funny and they do a bunch of stupid stuff that is hilarious and they make a great video. Awesome. Most of us don't have those qualities, or I should say some of us. I don't know if I would go most of us, but so tell your story, right? Like the reason I think that you were doing that at the time was because that's what was in your mind. You were at the point in business that you were talking about Scooter's Lawn Care and what you found to improve. Now you're at a different point where you're looking at different things. You're looking at investing in different opportunities. Well, that growth is actually shown, just not maybe physically spelled out for you. But if you take a look at the big picture, it's easy for somebody to see just where your mindset went from, I just started to, I'm a couple of years in, to this is my experience of 5 years, and now where I'm going here.
Yeah. And this is like, we're getting out of the sales a little bit and we're tracking off on some different things, but it's fine. We're letting it build and evolve, but getting into this video stuff, but I guess we're not, because we're talking about branding. We're talking about building a brand, and everybody should be building their own personal brand and building their story. These videos for your business and for your sales and for your life, they allow a catalog of what's happened. You just said it yourself. I can look back every August, I make a video about stress. It's crazy. And I'm always wondering why the last few hairs I've got, I'm pulling them out in August. And this year, the craziest thing happened.
You got to be careful there. There's not a lot left.
Dude, I know. She's really nice and shiny. It's good for the camera. Really add some light.
That's right.
But so the craziest thing happened. Last year, I made the correlation that every August I make a stress video. This year, I made a stress video, not thinking about it again, but kind of knew it always happened in August. And it just felt like time. And this year, I made it on the same day I made the original video 2 years ago. And it just shows you can look at your life, you can look at what you've built or the things you've done. And it's so good to see that. And people, when they go to buy from you, that story, that life, they get to see that too. So if you're in shoes like you are, Matt, direct to person sales, I find a customer, I do the adjustment, I provide the service. You can connect with them and they know you before you meet them. So, I mean, I have customers that watch my YouTube channel and know me, and that's a step up beyond us branding on Facebook. Know me before I get there. Hey, I watch your YouTube channel. Your stuff's awesome. Like, it's like I've met so many people because of that. It's like they already know everything about me. It's almost a little weird, but I don't have to go and tell you about myself. Now, here, let me hear about you. And it's me getting to sell with it without doing anything, you know?
Yeah, I like it. Well, but that's also because you are yourself. And, you know, there's nothing that drives me more crazy than seeing somebody on social media or videos or whatever, and you meet them and they're totally fake. It's a completely different deal. It's all for show. And I freaking hate it. And so that's something that I never want to be. And I recently had somebody tell me that I respect pretty highly. And they're like, no, you're exactly the person that you are in your videos, or, you know, that you are on Instagram or whatever. Good. That's what I want it to be. You know, I mean, it may be in some videos a little higher projected or whatever than maybe I talk as I'm, you know, in with my patients. But, you know, that's the same. That's why they feel like they know you, is because it's not any different on video as you are in person. As you're talking, I think another way that you can sell yourself without selling yourself. So Jacob, in your experience, you know, what has allowed you to sell without selling? We've talked about a lot of different, you know, pieces, but, you know, what is really your heart and soul of how you're able to do that?
That is, you know, and we've rehashed that a little bit. It's just a big mix of things. It's knowledge, it's self-branding, it's your business branding that allow you to go into a situation and already be posed as the expert. So now you're not there to sell, you're there to, in my situation, find out what's the problem we're trying to fix. And I'm just coming up with an answer for you. I'm not even selling. They're sold to be with us already. And we're just coming up with an answer, making sure people are taken care of. And then the knowledge, the brand, and all of the storytelling before that, sold it before we even got there.
I love it. And I think no matter what your business is, you're going to come up with a little bit different answer for this one. Like for me, I think a lot of what allows me to sell without selling, if you're a big like sports guy and you want to be in the sports industry, it's what are your credentials? What have you done? Like where does your credibility come from in regards to the things that you're saying? Like I've had the amazing opportunity of being one of the team chiropractors of St. Louis Blues, like being in the locker room, seeing physically what happens on all those levels. And not only that, but, you know, universities and teams and athletics, like if I want to go speak to other people about sports, I could probably be a good person to do it, you know, and not saying that you have to work for or with professional athletes or sports just to have a good baseline and credibility, but whatever it is, you know, just do it, but get your certifications, do those things, work hard, because eventually, as we talked, you know, letting your work speak for itself, you're going to get those opportunities. You're going to get lucky enough to be allowed those opportunities. And, you know, where you take them from there is kind of up to you. Right. But in my experience, that's something that makes a difference.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Cool. Well, how do you avoid temptation to be on sales constantly?
I got to be honest. I'm playing the bad guy here. I am on sales, honestly.
That's all right.
You know, my wife is really the person that does it, because our not selling is through social media platforms. So she really controls that, and she does such an amazing job of telling a story. I can't help myself, but like, I want to be persuasive. Like, that's like what I like. Like, to me, it's always a game. It's been a game since I was a little kid of getting what I want. And that sounds horrible and bad, but that's sales. That's persuasion is sales. And, just as far as not making it be a tacky ABC, always be, or a whatever, always be selling type of person, just
Always
really always be
is?
closing. That's what it is. ABC, always be closing. It's really truly caring and really truly trying to provide a good service for someone and trying to actually figure out their needs instead of be a forceful salesman. So I hit on this earlier, not necessarily just being a hammering salesman is listening, listen to what people need. They have you there to be a professional, to provide them whatever it is that you provide them, and not just trying to control it, listening to them and making sure you're providing value. And you'll sell it without even having to be forceful on sell it. And then you combine that in with wanting to be a salesman and wanting to be forceful about things too. Yeah. And then you can work stuff from every angle, because the more passionate you become about something, the more conviction you have that it's right, the more it allows you to go kind of farther with things, and allows you to push for things more because you believe in them.
Well, and just being a good listener that's a relationship 101 for any relationship, like personal relationship, business relationship, you're building a brand, whatever, so we all feel we have something to say, and it's always important. But kind of, sitting back and letting others speak and kind of voice their opinion. Like, it's amazing. If I have a problem, this is an internal business thing, I guess, if you will, but let's say that I have a problem with an employee, what they did. Well, maybe what I do, instead of going, look, I'm pissed at you for this and this is why, sometimes that's necessary. But a lot of times you if you flip it around, and this is typically if you take the emotion out and kind of take a second to think about it. But if you kind of flip it around and go, look, here's, what was going on here? Is everything okay with you? Like, is family okay? Is life okay? And then here's a problem that I had. Give me a little insight into what happened. Right? I know in some regards why I'm pissed about it, but maybe there's more story to it. And listening to hear them out, like, it was amazing. We had an interaction. I had one with an employee earlier. There were a good handful of things that I was not happy about. I didn't know if it was directly from them or not. It didn't seem like this individual to do this, but, hey, let's throw it over in their end and see, what it was. And it was pretty interesting. There were a couple things that this person owned up to that just got dropped. But I tell you what, like, I'm going to praise you 10 times more for owning up that you dropped the ball than creating some excuse. But anyway, the story that came together told why it happened. And had I jumped all over it, I would have looked stupid. We still wouldn't have got anything accomplished. And so at the end of the day, listening, it makes a huge difference.
And what you just did is you sold that person on solving a problem. You sold them on that. I guess that's my thing about sales. Like, everything is truly a sale. Every conversation, everything. When you're, and that's the best way to approach it. You approached it from a listening standpoint. You wanted to get to the bottom of this. So I approached you and I sold them telling their story so they could, like, hash it out and I could understand it better. So then I could understand,
I guess.
And understand the situation to better fix it in the future,
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. And, when you were talking about the selling part, I think you and I are also a little different in multiple ways, but the way that, I think the reason that you always feel on to sell is because you're also very confident now in what you do and your approach and all of those things. The more confidence you have that you're not selling something to somebody that they either don't need or that's not a good product or you don't believe in what you're doing. I mean, that's a huge piece right there. And I think for us chiropractors early on, there's no book that says exactly how you should be a chiropractor. Like you learn all this stuff, but the business side is different. And physically, selling somebody, because it's their body, it's not the look of different things, whatever. Like this is them personally, how they feel, which can work in your favor. But you have to know what you're about. You have to study. You have to figure out. And I think that's even something that I'm improving on all the time. Where does that value lie? And I think the more that for certain, hey, it's going to take you 8 visits, and that's my experience to know. That's not really a sell. That's like, this is what you need. Now I'm selling
what it is.
Right. It is what it is. And so do you agree that's probably where you're coming from a lot of times?
Yeah. But at the same token, what the power that's gave me, and in whatever position in life you do that in, I gained that confidence through doing this business. And now I could do it, I feel like, with anything. So that's something I've gained where, and now when I see people that are not confident, it always frustrates me. I'm like, why can't they, even though they don't know necessarily what they're talking about, why can't they sell it? Or why are they so unconfident in themselves? And I think it's a little bit about what you said about, like, I cut my teeth on having to figure out everything. And I was always really good at coming up with a quick little spiel, knowing fragmented parts of it, and still being like, yep, I know everything. I know enough to tell you about this. And so, through the confidence building that all of that gave me, it's changed me. It's changed how I act. It's changed how I sell, persuade, and close deals, things like that. You tie that in with confidences about selling and constantly focusing on learning to sell. It's definitely changed my whole thought process on kind of on how it works.
I think it's also,
and that's good, but you're right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
You definitely have to build that up the first time, and maybe you're a little better at it than some. I feel like I was a little better at selling than some. I've been doing it in ways for a long, long time. But if you don't have it yet, you build that in, like you said, in your start of getting into business and start to sell yourself. And now that you've really found an accomplished way to do that, you can take that into other stuff twice as easy as you could off the get.
And I do feel a lot of it is actually personality too. Like you're somebody
100%.
You're just somebody that's never really cared what other people think. And I was somebody that cared way too much what people think. And I think when you kind of start to conform a little bit of the don't really care what people think, but also study your information enough that you're confident with what you're doing. Like, you and I are kind of like started at different points and are kind of meeting in the middle, I feel like, with different items. Like, not that, everybody's just different. It's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad. Like, you have qualities I don't, I have qualities you don't, and it just allowed us to be us. And I think that's why the bottom line of what we're saying is we're giving tips and tricks that we personally have found that you can tie into your own personality. You're not either one of us. There's nothing that you're going to do that's exactly like Matt Pennell or like Jacob Godar, but there are bits and pieces that you can take and tie it into your own. And sometimes that just takes time.
Yes, it takes time. It takes perseverance. It takes the willingness to go for it a lot of times when you don't want to. And that's why so many, like you said, so many of these little topics are good, because you're not always going to feel good about selling. So maybe you can focus on building a brand while you're trying to build up that ability to sell stuff and sell yourself. So you are more and more confident, so you can just continue being more and more successful.
I love it. The one thing that I remembered what I was going to just chat on earlier in regards to, you talked about building videos and social media posts and whatever that is, and just how it allows you to sell yourself without selling yourself, and then how you can kind of grow physically, mentally, in regards to the video atmosphere. And I think one way that it can allow you to grow is don't think about who's going to be taking this information in. Think about what you want to say in this conversation. Like, I'm so glued into this conversation Jacob and I are having. I'm not worried at all about who's receiving on the other end. I mean, I hope that it gets received well, And like little flashes of me will think over to it. But like when you're glued in, that's what that Tim Grover is the personal trainer for Michael Jordan. That's what he talks about, like being relentless, being a cleaner, being unstoppable. It's tunnel vision. It's a laser focus that just, you don't care about everything else. It's right here. You know what it reminds me of, Jacob, back in like racing days? It's like being in the power band, if you will, right? Like there's only one little line that's where you get all the speed.
Yep.
And I think that's your one tip of just kind of blocking it all out. Don't worry about how it's received. You say what you want to say, the way you want to say it, and it is what it is.
That is such a great point. You know, it's so powerful to think about focus and what it does. And you said something that us kind of coming together like this over time and the differences, something that you said you've had the biggest problem with, or did have the biggest problem with, caring about what other people think. That's a message that I learned a long time ago there was a time where I did, and it made me so mad that I just forcefully tried to stop, you know, and through business, and I didn't think I was going to learn this through business. This is going to be our last little thing before we wrap this up. Through business, it's taught me that caring about other people is a hindrance. You know, caring about what people think is a hindrance. And it's been so powerful that it's the one thing that I want to teach my kids, that you go out there and you do whatever it is that you want to do and be proud of it. And no matter what anyone thinks, it has nothing to do with them. It's all about you. And everyone that's watching this, everything you want to do, it's all about the future that you're interested in building, and everyone else's thoughts on that are totally irrelevant. Now, given you're being moral and you're not getting out of line, you know, people's thoughts on the way you live your life and being concerned with the way that you live your life will just slow you down and keep you from excelling and selling and everything else. So,
and that's why older people that you come across don't care as much, because they've understood that. And that's why they just say what they say. And sometimes it seems blunt, but they've lived it, and they know that at that point in time, everything that they thought was a big deal really isn't. And so the faster that we learn that, the less regret we have. And just to be honest, like, there are a lot of points in my life that I think were affected in a negative way. Like, I don't live a bad life. That's not what I'm trying to say. But there are a lot of things that I feel I could have done differently throughout my life, purely based on the fact that I cared way too much. Like the leader that I could have been in high school, let's say, could have been just way different if I looked at things now the way that now back then, right? Like, but at the time I was too scared to step up and say what I wanted to say. I was too scared to support some of the other people around me and some of the different things that, like, it ain't about how many friends you have. It ain't about being friends with X, Y, and Z. It's about holding those people close, because those, to be honest, guys, and I hope there are a couple of high school kids and younger people that do eventually listen to this, but I promise you, most of those relationships, especially those superficial ones in high school, grade school, whatever, they're not going to mean shit down the road. And the only people that are going to be by your side are the ones that were those tough relationships where you truly felt like you love that person, go arm in arm. And that, you know, that's here we are again. You know, that's why Jacob and I reconnected.
Exactly. Well, that was awesome. I'm glad you threw in that little piece on top of that, not worrying about what people think about you, so you can go out there and focus on what's most important, and that's building your life. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I know Matthew enjoyed it as well. This is always fun when we get together, and I look forward to seeing all of you soon. Later.
Love it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jake.